Hi, welcome back to Future Fast. And once again, we have Balaji with us. And for those of you who have missed the previous two conversations we've had with Balaji, the first one where he talks about his journey, very interesting. I urge you to please go and look up if you have missed it. And second part, we actually talk about quite a bit, but mostly focused at the kind of work Balaji is doing with the founders, right? And how it is impacting. And he also shared some. Uh, I don't know if I can put it as case studies, if you will, but they can be good takeaways. You could look at considering it on your own teams. But nevertheless, at least it gives you a better perspective, and you can always reach out to Balaji for that part of it. But today we are going to talk about future and Balaji's perspective on future, and perhaps the areas that he is involved with is where much of it, and rest uh, wherever the conversation leads to. So, hope you will enjoy as much as I'm looking forward to it. Once again, Balaji, thank you so much for coming back to Future Fast.
Thank you so much, Nanjunda. It's really a pleasure to be here. And thanks for spending so much time exploring the kind of work I'm doing and my past. It's always a pleasure to talk about oneself, I think.
Yeah, but for today, we will not talk about your past, but the
Sure.
future, what you think the future will be.
Certainly. Yeah.
So, technically, we are at the end of the another year. So,
Yes.
uh, so what is it that you're looking forward to in future? I mean, it's for 25 and beyond. What is the first thing that you're very optimistic about for the future?
So, okay. So, one thing is very clear that the future is going to change much more rapidly than it has over the last 20, 30 years. I mean, we have seen so much change in our own careers, right? Because when I started my business, we didn't have internet, right? And
Correct.
today we can't live without an internet, including
Right.
this particular call which is happening.
Right.
And I think with the changes happening in AI and things like that, the world is going to be totally, totally different in the next 5 years. So, which means, I mean, I'm taking a perspective from an entrepreneur perspective. I think we should be prepared to adapt to changes in the landscape a lot more rapidly than we are used to. And I think what will really work and we are not quite sure how things will pan out. We don't know how what kind of tools will be available. So the how we will, I don't think we'll be quite sure how things will happen. Neither do we have a grip on what shape it will
What?
take. Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't have a grip on the tools. We don't have a grip on the outcomes. But I think what we can have a grip on as entrepreneurs is what's the core emotional value that we want to create as entrepreneurs, right? Irrespective of which product or service we get into.
So, if
Okay.
I can put it, you say that we don't have control on how and what, but we have control on why we are doing it.
On the why, and even more
Yeah.
deeply, and why, if you go to the core, is about how, at a very intrinsic level, am I going to help others? How am I going to add value to others? Right? So that emotional value, okay, is what we have some control of. In fact, that's what is driving us in any case. Like in the previous episode, I was telling about the golden vibe exercise that we
Right.
do in Liberated Enterprise Creators, where the subconscious drive which is there within each of us, which is very unique, we bring it to the surface so that our strategic brain is aware, our thinking brain becomes aware of it, or the conscious brain becomes aware of it. And with that conscious brain, we are able to strategize on how to use that deep instinct on this is how I want to add value to others. So I think that is what we need to be anchored on. In any case, that's what is driving us. But if we are aware of it, if we are kind of use it as a North Star, then irrespective of the how and the what, we will be able to deliver that particular value that we want to deliver to people around us, customers, clients, team members, and so on. So that's broadly what I'm kind of thinking. So we need to be anchored on the purpose, but be very flexible on the means and what outcome it finally, or what shape it takes finally.
So, you are a very optimistic person, but are you uh, this optimist in the way the scenario is, right? Today, uh, we were talking about it earlier that there was some posting which was actually doing rounds, right? A lot of people were sharing it across platforms about a person having a conversation with one of the Ivy League students who stopped in the middle of the conversation saying, "Sorry, I have some kind of a glitch because usually when I'm conversing, it's mostly on phone or through the laptop, and I use AI. But this face to face, I feel under-equipped to continue because I don't have the tool."
Yeah,
So, and
yeah,
honestly, uh, we see our kids, younger people, school reports are made using AI tools.
yeah,
Uh, at one end, it's good that they are able to uh, think and handle tools better, but on the other side, there's always an element of uh, are they just buying in whatever it is? Are they, checking out the sources? And is that the right approach? And how will it shape their own thought processes, in terms of how they react? I mean, will they get into a glitch in a normal conversation?
yeah. I mean, I can tell about myself. The other day, I was just, contemplating. I had to do, I had to do some quick math in my head, right? And I was kind of saying, why am I struggling? I was not was struggling with math earlier, right? Why am I struggling
Pick
now?
up the
Purely
phone and
because
do the
we have got
calculation.
used, yeah, we have not been using that aspect of our mental faculty for so long. We're kind of losing those abilities. And I think that's a sad part of it, because it's so convenient to just ask your, mobile phone, or nowadays you can just ask,
Correct.
you can even dictate, right, in the search, and you'll get the answers. So I think we are losing some of those abilities, which might actually be very useful. I don't know what the solution is, because if we don't use a particular part of our brain or competence, then that competence starts diminishing.
Oh, I
So
had the same experience. Uh, I recently published, which I shared with you, that where are the jobs? So as I was typing, I had spent a lot of time collecting the data, but then I
hmm,
had to read. So the immediate thought was that how would I putting it into the AI and get an analysis? There I
yeah,
stopped. Like what the hell am I doing? And this is supposed to be my analysis. So uh, just to force the thought out, I just didn't write.
yeah,
Next day I would pick up and the thought was same, so I would just do something else but not write. And it took me 3 weeks to even get back to writing.
correct, correct, yeah, yeah, no,
So I just had to like undo it and do without the AI for anything, and only then I could actually again come back to it. But I don't know, maybe uh, I don't know. It's with the age that I'm able to control myself. But do you think much younger people who fresh into job, they're always in a hurry to prove themselves, and this is much easier to use the tool and
yeah.
put it out. How do you
Yeah, so
see this?
that's, I know I don't have a clear answer, but this is the dilemma, right? So you need things to happen fast. So you want to use the most appropriate, most relevant tools, but
Right.
in that process, if you're losing the ability to do it yourself, so I think that's going to be a challenge. But anyway, the best
See,
work
it
will
is about
happen.
your analysis, right? I mean, if I have to do
Yeah.
my analysis, if I'm putting it on the
Oh
machine,
yes.
where is it's mine?
Yes, that, and since you've not spent time, doing it yourself, you might just accept whatever the machine gives you, which may not be what.
You agree
Uh,
with? Uh,
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know. So how will this
yeah. This is a
work?
problem. This is a problem. So I think, and the other problem is we are so much flooded with information. Just this, and because we're kind of just surrounded by so much information, data, both true and false, but you're flooded. So I think just this problem of figuring out what is relevant and what should we pay attention to is really a big problem. Well, it's already a problem. It's going to be a bigger problem as we go along.
Well, you work with founders and leaders. So, given this scenario, how do you see, how will you approach in preparing them to handle this situation? Because in
Yeah,
all our work, see, if we are facing it individually, we'll also be facing it at work.
sure.
So,
See, I
what will
think
you
I
do?
think we just need to keep adapting with times. I can take a recent example. All this while I was conducting my workshops in Liberated Enterprise Creators as an in-person workshop. It's a full day workshops. And recently, one entrepreneur who attended after a gap maybe of 2 years. He attended the online workshop. So I started an online workshop which is just 1 hour a week for 4 weeks, right?
Right, you
And he was telling me, Balaji, I felt that this online workshop is better than the in-person workshop.
and why
Okay.
so?
And so his reasoning was that, see, after that 1 hour session, I get 1 week time to mull over it, think about those concepts. And then when I come back, I'm that much more clearer about what happened in that 1 hour,
Hmm.
which may not be possible in a day long thing because, you don't have that much time to introspect and think about what was taught. And for me it was, see, I did it more, I think Zoom, I mean, the COVID was the reason all this is
Correct.
happening in the first place, right? Zoom
Right.
and all of that. And of course I did
And
it because
we
it was,
stuck to it because of the convenience. That's it.
yeah, in fact I didn't stop after COVID went
Okay.
away and
Okay.
brought back the in-person one. But then I again started because there were people from other cities who wanted to attend, and
Mm.
so I said, okay, let me
So
do
you
this.
still do a in person and the virtual, is it?
Yes. So
Okay.
now I'm
Okay.
wondering whether the in-person is required or not. So so I'm saying things are changing, without us even, because my perception is that in-person is better because, but looks like the online is working as well. So,
Yeah.
and the online version also, the format is so different from the in-person one in a sense. The content is shared through short videos, 5 minute, 10 minute,
Mm.
15-minute videos, which are shared during the week. And people can watch it, whenever it's convenient for them.
Right.
So when they come
Right.
for the 1 hour session, it's actually question and answer, interaction, doubts, and, making it, you see uh, whereas if you think about typical classrooms, it is
Correct.
really the concepts are delivered one on one, right?
Correct.
So the format has changed. I mean, the way you deliver has changed because of the tools available.
Mm.
I don't know how it will be in the future. I was kind of contemplating. I was using this notebook LM. I was playing with it, and I had shared a lot of the testimonial, success stories that entrepreneurs had shared with
Right.
me. I'd
Mm.
put it all together and asked, the notebook LM has that overview feature.
Right. Right.
And I was listening to that and I was saying, why should I now talk? Right? These guys are doing such a lovely job of explaining the various concepts that have happened. So I was actually wondering, so what's my role now? I mean, if AI is going to do such a lovely job of explaining things, I just have to write it and give it to them to be able to express it in so much more, you know,
Well,
fun manner than I possibly could. That was a doubt coming to my mind. Then I asked my wife, and she was saying, "No, no, you can only speak better." Anyway, she might have been just boosting up my ego.
well, you actually can technically create your own avatars, which will also pick up your own voice
Yeah,
and gestures. So it would be like you delivering. Only thing is
eh,
that it is all done on the mission.
correct. Yes.
Uh,
So,
so
and
there is a
these are just early
positive
days.
side of
These
it.
are early
Yeah,
days for all of these
correct,
tools. That's the
correct.
interesting thing. Yeah.
So
So
do you fear anything out of this?
I think that we need to be prepared. So we can't do anything. We can't stop it. It's just
Yeah, yeah. There's no stopping. Yeah.
there's no stopping it. So I think we need to be a lot more nimble about it. And we should possibly, as a broad strategy, don't get wedded to one way of doing things.
Mm,
Broad approach. We should not say, hey, this is the only way to do something. So again, going back to that broad thought process, I think be flexible about the means and how the end product might look, but be very firm on the key principles and the
mm,
key
mm.
purpose that you want to deliver. Uh, so I think, yeah, that's the line we might have to travel as entrepreneurs.
And what do you think about uh, the very system of learning right now? One side, the skill focus is good, right? Because they are able
Yeah,
to use
yeah.
the tools. It makes their job easy, faster, quicker.
Yes, yes.
But on the other side, how do you? What's your take on the education system? Of course, there is NEP, which is brought in uh, uh, many changes, which are quite similar to what was already there in the West.
Hmm.
But from your observation, what do you think uh, should be or could be the approach going forward in the education side?
So I think broadly speaking, what we need to develop is, thinking skills, the ability to think critically, ability to debate, ability to kind of distinguish fact from fiction. Uh, and I think those are the things that will be, that'll be kind of a foundation for us possibly. The rest of it that we used to spend a lot of time, at least when I grew up, was memorizing concepts, memorizing things. And I think the need for that has disappeared quite some time back. And now even more so. Uh, and I think the other skill which will become even more important is how do we relate with people?
Mm,
How do we deal with how do we deal with emotions? How do we deal with uh, you know interpersonal relationships and so on and so forth?
mm,
And yeah, I think those things will become more and more critical as we go along.
right. And what's your take on the future of work? Right. See, already work from home came about because of COVID, and then now it's a work from anywhere
Yeah,
is the thing. So, what's your take on that? I mean, you actually also run a business facilitating it. I
around
mean, you've
work.
been a
Yeah.
pioneer in that. So,
Yes. So I think the work, this whole concept of flexible work will, like, I think, dominate nowadays. Also, now very rarely do I find a person who says it's a mandate for me to go, especially at the senior management. Very rarely do I find a person saying that I have to go to work every day.
but many
Right?
are kind of going back to it, right? I mean, gradually, but
Yeah, this it seems to be. But I think we need to kind of look at it from how much of collaboration and interaction do we need from others, and type of work. I don't think we can have a diktat that this is the only way to do work.
mm,
That
mm,
is, everybody has to work from office, everybody has to work from home, both ways. I think it's really a function of how much of collaboration is required among the team members. Can they
mm,
do they need to apply themselves?
mm,
Like, some work you really need to focus and you need to be alone in a quiet atmosphere to do the
mm,
work, in which
mm,
case you don't really require to go to the office, I feel, as long as you have a quiet space at home.
mm,
But on the other hand, there will be work where there needs to be constant collaboration, and even there, maybe you can't do it online. It has to,
mm,
because nowadays, even this, for example, this podcast is happening online. So, and this is a fairly serious discussion, right? In a sense,
good,
we are actually collaborating on creating this, making this happen. So, if
right.
this can happen online, so what is left for in person, right?
Mm,
Uh, so I think a lot of the reason why people are saying, "Hey, let's go back to office," is because managers don't know what their team members are up to, right?
mm, mm.
And that is a
Many
problem.
concepts came about, right? The front camera should be on, and there should be a
Yeah, I
camera
know.
behind.
I know. I think that mindset is going back to fundamental belief that people don't like work, and they might be goofing off. So therefore, we need to watch them, supervise them, control them. And I think we need to
With
move away,
they want to have an eye on the screen. I
eye
mean
on
that.
them. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
if you
certainly.
can't trust your employee, then why have
Yes, yeah,
such?
correct. It's kind of coming from that mindset. So I think we need to move away from that. That's an old mindset which developed the whole manager word itself, right?
Yeah, right,
Which I alluded to last time, comes
right.
from this whole aspect of we have to control people to do things that they may not do it on their own. So I think that paradigm is not relevant anymore. We have to come from the paradigm of that people want to contribute in a meaningful fashion. They are responsible, and we have to learn as managers, as entrepreneurs, and I think we should not even use the word manager, as leaders and
Have
as
you got a
entrepreneurs.
term for management as well? I mean, because
Yeah, I don't like that word because it connotes
so do
control.
you have a replacement word? I
Oh
mean
yeah,
that's
we
a
do. In fact, in Liberated Enterprise Creators, we use words like galvanizers. Okay.
okay.
So who's a galvanizer? Galvanizer is a person. Okay, first, even more basic. The best work happens when people want to do work rather than they have to do work.
Mm,
You think about it, the best work, even for yourself, if you think about when you got excited about doing something and you did some awesome work, it was because you really wanted to,
right.
right? So the role of the leader or the entrepreneur is to tap into that emotion, okay, of how do I get someone to want to do something.
Uh, very. There was a uh, there was a conversation on LinkedIn triggered by Krish. He's a senior HR professional, and he's also authored a very good book on people management, but more about engagement and all that. And there also, I was trying to ask the same question. See, there will always be some people who will work because they want to earn money. It's not what they want to do, but
Yeah.
they have to do because their interest is something else, and they are made peace with that. Right? They are very clear. I mean, I've met a lot of people who are actually very successful in their
Oh yeah, sure,
profession,
sure.
but it
Yeah.
is just they are very clear that it's just a profession. I'm going to do it up to this point in time. I need to be making this much of money, but these are the things I like.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure you also met. There are actually
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of people
definitely.
like that.
That's the product of the way we have organized our work. That's
So
not a
that will always be
see.
there, right? I mean, there'll be some who will always work
So what I'm
not
saying
because they like.
is so they're kind of they don't have an option. That's why they're doing that. Supposing we give them an option,
Mhm.
two options. One is you yes you have your own passions and so on, which is where you can't earn your money, sure, but the work is something that you'll do so that you can pursue your passions. That's one
That
option.
you
Okay.
can't earn is not acceptable, right? So that's where
Okay. And the other is you the work also is a delight, your passion, and you have the time and energy to be able to do other things as well. Now which option do you will you choose? You'll choose the second one, but the thing
no,
is
but not
those
by not making money is the part where that is not acceptable. They would people would want to have. I'm okay to sacrifice this part to a point of time up until some time, but money. See, we all know, right? Today, Bangalore has become extremely expensive. I mean, we both actually live in Bangalore,
yeah, certainly, certainly. No, you
so
need to earn, you need to make money. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying why are people compromising? Because they don't have an option.
mm, mm,
Why are they kind of getting into situations? Why are people traveling 1.5 hours in the morning, 1.5 hours in the evening to get to work? Uh, and I met a lady the other day, and she was saying in Mumbai, she travels like this 1.5 hours both ways. And so I was asking, do you really need to be in the office to do the work? And she was saying, no, the manager demands that I need to be there, but I can do it at home as well. Okay. So why is she doing it? Because she doesn't have an option, right? She doesn't have an option. She may not have other job opportunities. And that's the reason she's kind of compromising because that 3 hours a day is actually a wasted time.
yeah. Actually, triggered some other thought. Um, uh, I'm sure you've heard enough number of people talking about Bangalore. It's such a waste of time. We spend 2 hours, 3 hours on road, right? Which is the case in Bombay. People actually travel that kind of
Oh, yeah.
time, but
Oh,
we
it's
never
just
hear
new.
them complain.
Yeah. They
And
never,
if you
because
have
they use,
interacted with people in
because
Chennai also,
Mumbai, I mean, however long, 3 decades back, 4 decades back, also, if you go, it was just like that, right?
yeah.
So you kind of take it as granted. Bangalore
Well, why is
wasn't
it
like
that
that.
people in Bangalore complain? In Chennai
It's
also, people have taken long distance. I remember people used to tell me even 10 years ago, 45 minutes, 1 hour travel, and really good distance. And they
correct.
say they would carry a book, they would finish a book in one way.
Is setting expectations. Bangalore had a lovely, we didn't face these problems maybe 20
No,
years
no.
back.
See, if you and I complain, okay, but people who migrate to Bangalore complain. I mean,
They
how's
should, they
that?
don't have a right to complain, seriously.
Why,
Yeah.
why do you think? I mean, this is something. Why is that happening? Why is Bangalore gives you an option to complain? Is that a Bangalore's culture that gets people to complain? What is it?
No, no, I think it's just that also where people typically, I think the most new immigrants to Bangalore stay in outer areas like Whitefield and Electronic City and things like that. So obviously, going to the airport itself is 1.5, 2 hours. Okay. So I
Hmm.
think even where they settle down, typically, they are bound to face problems.
Yeah, but that's what this always keeps coming back out when we're talking about it. This came up. Sorry. So
Yeah.
going back, just one quick thing about your one of your businesses. So do you think that is there to stay, as in uh, shared workspace that's going to grow further? Because
I think it's
so
going to
many of
change.
them.
It's going to change. See, right now, for example, we have been
Change
in
for
this
what?
business.
Change for, as in, are
Change.
you?
I think, see, 29 years we have been in this space. Now, right now, it's become a commodity, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
at this point of time, it's a commodity because all people are saying we want is give me a good table, air conditioned space, and a chair and a security guard at the gate will do, right? That's all they need. But
now, to make
uh,
it good, coffees and some
yeah,
play
some
area.
basic stuff, some basic stuff. Yeah. So I think in the future it'll be more about you're going to the office so that you can have productive meetings, whether with your colleagues or with other people and so on. So I think that's the shift that will happen. And we at Golden Square we are very focused on small teams. Large teams, they will go with that commodity because they don't need anything else from.
But do you see it still continues to grow, or do you think it'll
I
shrink?
think, yeah, because I mean, till they start some kind of teleporting people, maybe,
Okay.
we can touch and feel through a Zoom call.
So you
Till
see it growing further.
till that time, I think there will still be a requirement. But yes, a lot of it has changed, right? So we are able to have this kind
So
of
the
conversations on
private
Zoom.
offices where they own their own offices, that will shrink, that will reduce, you see?
So there's, I think the physical space that's required will shrink because supposing there are 20 team members, people might say, okay, just give me space for around 10 team members and let it make it flexible. Maybe 3 or 4 of them will be there all the time. The rest of them might be coming in once in a while,
Mm,
right?
mm.
And I think requirements like design it in such a way that there's always a meeting space available so that we can sit and chat. I mean, discuss things and so on and so forth. So I think that's the kind of shift which might happen going forward.
So large commercial spaces you think will reduce. They will move to the shared spaces.
So I have a feeling. See, there is still so much of work that will come to India, mainly because it's repetitive work and it is low skill work, which
You think it'll
I think
continue?
essentially which was the reason
Mm.
why our software IT
Yeah.
industry grew, right? Our BPO industry grew. I think still that will be there because even figuring out how to use AI and configuring it and how to automate things and so on, a lot of it is mechanical.
Well, that is true. See, recently, like that article I mentioned, I was referring to earlier that I wrote about
Hmm.
looking into companies. See, most of the technology companies have reduced hiring. In fact, I looked at last 5 years. Many of them have market cap is doubled,
Hmm.
but headcount increase is marginal.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, you can say 20% over 5 years, not year
Yeah.
on year. So, and if you go look at last year and this year, many of them are in single digit. I'm
Hmm.
talking about very large companies, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we are still not
And when you
talking
say
about.
tech companies, you're talking about US companies or Indian companies?
I'm talking about Indian companies. I basically looked at the companies registered in India, Indian
In India.
stock
Okay.
market,
Okay.
capital market.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So within that technology sector, I mean, funnily, every sector the job is shrinking. Public sector, government-run companies' job is shrinking. One good part was that productivity, but it's still not AI, right? It's just digitization and some amount of automation. So
Hmm.
the jobs are shrinking. So where do you? I mean, of course, government report says that we need to add more jobs from a point of growth in
Yeah.
population and all. But I really don't know
Yeah.
how will we fill it up. I think
The
maybe.
only, I think the ray of hope I'm kind of thinking is what happened with our telecom infrastructure.
Hmm,
Like we
hmm.
kind of jumped because we didn't have,
Pager.
legacy
Yeah.
systems, right? So we kind of, I think if you compare the telecom or internet rates in India versus anywhere else in the world, I think it's really, really accessible
Correct. Correct.
for most people. And therefore you see people using mobile phones for transactions and things like that and so on. Even your auto drivers
Correct.
uh, will be using it and
Vegetable
so on,
vendors, small time
vegetable
vendors.
vendors
Yeah.
and so on. So I'm kind of thinking if we use the same kind of approach to making data ridiculously cheap
Hmm.
for people, what will happen is possibly then people will start using technology to bridge the other skill gaps they would have had. For example, now I think I was saying something on how quickly AI is able to translate from language to language.
Hmm,
So
hmm.
I don't need to know English to be able to communicate with you, right?
Right. Right.
So that might have been a deficiency from my education, right? I might not have studied in English medium school or something like that. But now with AI, I can still use my mother tongue and be able to
Correct.
communicate with you,
Correct.
right?
Indian language also. In fact, yesterday a
Yeah.
friend of mine made a call and I was hearing it was still a little glitchy because it was kind of echoing,
So
but
now I can.
it was real time in going in Hindi.
Yeah,
And he was
correct.
asking me to speak in Kannada, and that would give out in Hindi. So,
So kind of extrapolate that kind of stuff. Just because information is so readily available to me, accessible in my language, and it is really affordable. So there's even that is not a barrier. Price is not a
mm,
barrier. Access is not
mm,
a barrier, and so on. Suddenly, I'll be able to do work for you, right?
mm, mm,
Without having those skills in terms of knowing English, knowing maybe not even knowing spreadsheets and so on, because I can now, potentially I can just dictate to AI saying that this is what I need and so
and
on. So even
put it to me
coding,
in a chart and give it to me.
yeah. So even coding, I can tell it, okay, do it
Correct.
this way, do it that way. And so that bridge, the gap which might have been, so we can look at it from that angle. So what is the enabler would be that, in a sense, make it accessible to the at a very, very cheap rate.
Mm, mm,
So for example, AI is expensive. Now, if you want any of those advanced ones, it costs anywhere between 2,000 rupees per month, right? If you have a lot of it is
uh,
free. A lot of those
$20 would be how much? Yeah, about
2,000, 2,500, right?
right,
Which is
right.
not a small amount for a typical Indian. It's a fairly large amount.
Mm, 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 mm.
And that has to be,
Maybe now so many players, right? I think
yeah,
competition will cut the price down.
hopefully, yeah, hopefully. Or there'd be some
Because
Indian
all are priced
entrepreneur.
at $20, right?
Yeah.
So
Or
they have.
something similar should happen. We need to make it a public good or something like that. Like it has happened in so many cases in India, right? Make it really accessible to the common man.
Uh, Yeah, that will go to a different tangent because there are a few people who are advocating India should not be focused on building an LLM, our own LLM. And I mean, uh, the Nandan Nilekani made that statement, right? So,
I see. I'm not sure. But the thing is, I mean, whether we make it or someone else makes it, but the point is it needs to be accessible to
mm,
the
mm. No,
at
but
a
problem is
and
it's
price should not be a
heavy
barrier.
infrastructure. No, but it's an infrastructure dependency, right? It's huge, it's
Mm.
expensive. So,
Yeah,
but
but even these things are rapidly shrinking. For example, the Google recent announcement, right? Google has made a
mm,
chip which is
correct,
quantum
correct.
computing thing and so on. So I think even their technology will leapfrog. We are in the early age stages, but these things will change very rapidly.
Yeah, I think see that announcement is a significant breakthrough in the quantum computing space, but from a point of hitting the market, uh, world has to run, right. So next 5 years at least, it may not be uh,
Sure.
to that extent. So I think yeah, while everything else is uh, has to keep running, things will change, cost will further drop, but that is also not cheap. Quantum computing is also expensive.
Yeah, yeah. Things
uh,
will change. It will happen much more
but yeah,
rapidly
cost
than
will drop.
yeah.
Costs will drop, yeah.
And
uh,
cost will drop. And the other thing is, we need to possibly, this is where I'm beyond our scope, but this is where the government, etc., would need to get involved to make it really accessible,
mm, mm,
like it happened for the telecom industry.
correct, correct. Yeah, that we need to see. So, bringing you back into your personal domain of one of the roles you also have played in your life is as an investor. So, and you are focused at early stage entrepreneurs. So, how do you see the startup ecosystem? I understand last few years you've not been very active, but since you're still interacting with the entrepreneurs, how do you see the startup ecosystem, and how do you see the future? Because obviously, the way I see at least is that the jobs are shrinking, so people will have to
Yeah.
start
Think of,
thinking
yeah.
differently. So, how do you see the startup uh, ecosystem evolving, and how do you think uh, the entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs should be approaching it?
Okay. See, so typically when we use the word startups and ecosystem and so on, we're kind of thinking about funded startups and we're thinking of VCs and all of that, right?
Oh,
And
also a lot of incubation facilities, right? I mean, today,
yeah,
of course,
yeah, yeah.
when you got started or when I got started, we didn't have
It
any of
wasn't there.
those
Yeah, yeah,
facilities.
yeah, yeah.
But
Correct.
today, I mean, you throw a stone, you may actually hit one startup
Yeah,
ecosystem,
yeah.
at
You
least
see,
in
so
Bangalore, right?
yeah. So I'm saying that is the typical mainstream media kind of thought process about entrepreneurship, right?
You know, make a
That
factory for startups.
in a sense, you kind of, so it's all funding related kind of startups. Okay.
Right.
And you're kind of looking at what kind of startups will get funded and make it 10x and $1 billion unicorn and all of those kind of things. That's the typical thought process. But the way in my world, because I'm coming from this world of BNI networks and so on and so forth, I come across. I mean, they're huge in number, those entrepreneurs, right? And no VC would actually fund them because they are not those tech. They're not riding a wave that they will become. Give that 10x multiple and so on and so forth,
Uh,
right? But
quick
that
value increase.
quick value or kind of, but that is the bulk of where the economic value, or what shall we say, employment, like you said, or impact and so on will
Mm,
happen. Okay.
mm,
And that's
mm,
been so all this while, even though there
mm,
might be so many more unicorns happening in this country and so on. If you look at the number of people who are involved in that, number of entrepreneurs involved in that is a tiny fraction. So I'm saying that is a huge world. Okay.
mm, mm,
And enabling them to making their world easier is where I think the focus needs to be. And
Do
today
you do
it's
you
not so
have
easy.
any view or
Yeah.
perspective on what government is doing for this? I mean, if you can qualify them as MSMEs, right? Typically,
You can maybe call them MSMEs. Yes, true.
yeah,
That's the typical terminology you can
yeah. So, but do
call
you
them.
have any view to the
I
policies
mean,
around that?
I'm
A
also an
perspective?
MSME, so I can share from my experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the compliance costs and dealing with all these are huge. Okay, I really wonder how smaller entrepreneurs deal with it, and you cannot deal with all of these things without, say, a chartered accountant, without a professional who's
It's a
into
very organized way of
FCSI.
creating middlemen to sustain anything,
Yeah,
right? Which is
correct.
actually taking more time and stressing you out rather than making you stress free.
Yes, exactly. I think that's quite huge, and I come across so many cases where dealing with those issues can be a nightmare. It can be really a nightmare. So I think so that ease of doing business is something that a lot has to happen.
For another article I'm writing, I was looking at it. In the last 5 years, nearly 50,000 entrepreneurs who are typically millionaires, right? I mean, not the billionaires, right? The
Mm,
millionaires
mm, mm,
have
mm.
moved their business out of India. They have
Yeah.
relocated themselves as they've uh, stopped being Indian anymore, right? I mean, they have taken up another citizenship and they have moved,
Sure.
and it's an annual feature.
Mm.
On an average, every year there is about 8,000 plus people. I mean, this is the millionaires, right? Who
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
entrepreneurs who run their businesses, who create that at least $1 million plus value, and they move out of India. It's such a big drain that is happening, which is in one way it is very scary considering that and government is still talking about creating big jobs will come from corporate India, which is absolutely not the case.
Not the
Uh,
case. Yes.
and what you're saying is also that most of the economy is sustained by MSMEs, right? I mean, maybe small numbers, right? 10 jobs, 20 jobs, but
Oh
they
yeah.
are big in number.
Yes, they are big in number. I think India is kind of built around that kind of entrepreneurship and that kind of business people.
So how do we
The
create a support system where government is seemingly not
government has
interested?
to leave. I think broadly speaking, government has to leave us alone.
How will that happen?
Okay, simplify all those compliances and so on. It's such a nightmare to kind of log into one of these government portals and see how long it takes to even submit a form. Right? You
Mm.
talk to your chartered accountant and they'll tell you how long it takes. Right? And all of those things are so common. They're not designed well. We are supposed to be an IT, what capital and so on and so forth. How come we are
I
not
mean,
able to do
we
this?
drumbeat our UPI success world over, but here we are still struggling.
Yeah, still struggling. And
Have
it
you
needs to be
have
really
you tried
simplified.
meeting any government agencies when you
Oh
were as
no,
a
I
BNI?
kind
Was there any representation?
no, we keep out of it because there are other bodies who are much more geared for that, like your FKCCI and so on. Their mandate is that. Their mandate is to represent on business
Have you
people to the
been part
government.
of their
So
board committees? Anything?
yeah, I have interacted with them,
Anything
but
likely
as
to come about for towards?
I'm not quite sure. I don't think. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. We
I
need
mean, is
to
it
tap
part
into
of
them.
their agenda at all, in the sense to work towards this?
See, I can't see those results on the ground, is all I can say,
Mm,
even if it was their agenda.
mm. But if you were to be part of it, what would you do? How can they go about it? Do you think there is a way we can achieve this actually practically? Is there?
Yes, I think so. So the first thing, I mean, if you ask me as a
Otherwise,
entrepreneur,
we are seeing 8,000 people.
yeah,
Just yesterday, I was talking to one more, and he's saying in the next 2 years he would like to leave the country.
yeah. I mean, one simple thing to make things simpler, right? The GST of 18%, okay, that rate is extremely high. Why? Because if you just look at the profits of even your large companies, which
Exactly.
company is earning more than around 10-12% of their top line, as
I
their
mean,
profits.
biggest gainer is government in any product, any business.
Correct. Take anything. So when your profit margins are more like in the range of 10, 12%, 15%, and so
And
on,
that's a good case.
how can you have a GST rate of 18%? Right. So I think we should learn from economies like Singapore and so on, where the GST rate, those rates are much
But
lower.
infrastructures are better, at least when there are huge taxes, good infrastructure. Here, huge taxes and very poor infrastructure.
Yeah. So the and see, if you have those lesser rates, you add speed into the business, right?
Mm,
And you
mm.
reduce the temptation to not comply. Even the other day, I was seeing some posts. They were saying, in that hotel, if you pay cash, it will be without GST or something like that. Why should
Wow.
that kind of a thought even come to anybody's mind,
Right, right.
right? So it won't come if it is reasonable.
One person I asked him, he also said he'll want to move to Singapore. I said, it's not a democracy. He says, Nanju, seriously, it's the safest place, right? My daughters can be very safe. We don't have to worry about it. Good infrastructure is there. And convenience, everything else is there. Does democracy is a factor that I should stay back
Oh
in
no, no,
India?
no. Let's not blame democracy. In fact, we don't have democracy in this country. Very frankly, I'll tell you what I mean by that.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
at a very broad level, what does democracy means? That a common citizen has a say in what is happening to things which matter to him. Right.
Fair.
The
Yeah.
only democracy we have is we can vote once in so many
Five
years,
years.
4 years, 5 years, and so on. Right. Okay. Except for that, what democracy do we have?
No, Balaji, here I'd like to refer it's the same argument I had with somebody else. The point is we feel our role is over after we own. How many times have we
So that
bothered to engage our representatives? See, first of all, people look at them as
so that
leaders, which is
so
so
I'll say
unfortunate.
no, no. So I'll tell you. For me, always. I mean, we can always do what we can, right?
Hmm.
But where I come from, because I come from what can an entrepreneur do in his organization, right?
Right,
So I'm
right,
in this conversation, I'm kind of just using that analogy to what can government do? Okay, what can policy makers do? And so one way is kind of people should do this. Okay, now
right,
if I'm an
right.
entrepreneur, I can't keep saying, hey, people should do this. I need to think about how can I change the design or the policy or the structure of the organization so
Correct,
that
correct.
it happens, right? So
Right.
from that angle, if you think about it, okay,
It is
uh,
self-limiting. Yeah.
yeah. So essentially, what has to happen is decentralization, right? So so I live in Vasantnagar in Bangalore, so I need to
And
be able
no
to.
BBMP elections for, I've even forgotten how
So
many years now.
exactly. So why should money be required in elections, right? Why can't I have some kind of a say in how the road is maintained in front of us, right?
I mean, these are fundamentals, right?
Sorry.
No, these are fundamentals. It should
Fundamentals,
happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what democracy is. Like, democracy is, the person for, I mean, it's like the person whom the government is
So you're
serving
saying my
should
argument
have a
of stay
say.
back for democracy, it is not even democracy. So that's also not a factor to stay back. Then why stay in India then? What would you say for that?
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. So this is my country, right? So this is where I'm going to stay, right?
Right.
This is mine. So why should I go somewhere else? And that's, I think we don't even have to think in a sense. It's not like going to a shop and kind of saying which product I like better. Okay, this is mine, so I need to be here. Okay.
Right. Right.
That's why I'm going to be here. But on the other hand, I know some people who kind of, there's a client of mine and he's from Europe, and that person says, I really wonder why, and he has got a lot of team members here in India. He says, I keep wondering why these people want to send their kids abroad. Okay, because India is where the opportunity is. He sees India as the place of
Correct.
opportunity, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
this is where the demographic dividend is going to play out. This is
Yeah.
where the growth rates are going to happen.
But it's a very skewed thing, right? At one side, there's uh, a promise of hope that at least India is growing better than any other part of the world.
See
But
that,
on the
and
yeah,
it's a question of just population, right? If with our population kind of getting into that productive age and so on and so forth, uh, so the economy is definitely going to grow at whatever 6% and so on, isn't it? It's a done deal.
uh,
But then if you want to get out of poverty, that is when you need to start growing at 8, 9, 10%, right? And that's the challenge. 6, 7% will happen because we are a huge population at an age where we have to work and earn money.
well, see, it's also a good sign is productivity is also increasing in India. But again, the sheer population, what you see as an advantage, is also another side of the challenge, right? Which is not enough jobs. So we
Yeah.
may be pushed into another revolution
I think
of sorts.
we just have to learn from what has worked for us in the past, right? There were two things which, I mean, see, I'm not an economist, but just we saw it in our own lives. What happened in 1991 just opened up the whole economy, and so
Mm,
much of progress happened after that. And the
mm.
lesson there is, hey, we need to decentralize. We need to allow people to do
Okay,
what's good for
now
them.
tell me, what do you mean decentralized? First, you said we are not a democracy because we don't have, and then you say we need to decentralize. So, how do you propose decentralization?
Okay, decentralize everywhere. For example, at a government level,
Are you
uh,
saying become a federal state like USA, each state
not even a
with a
federal. I
little
mean, okay,
more
uh,
in
more. I
control?
mean, I think the structures are already there. You just need to enable it. For example, you already have panchayats and so on. But do panchayats really have the resources to do anything? At
Well, incidentally, one side of it is yes, they do get a lot of funds, but the political system uh, has
the
has locked
impulse
it
to
in.
control the impulse to
Yeah,
control resources and decisions. I think that we need
mostly
to.
decision because the same, though technically legality insists that the panchayats are independent of political party. They are not supposed to be aligned to a political party. But if you actually look at it within, they are very strongly aligned.
Correct. So it should not be that way, right? It should be what is good for the community rather than what's a party line.
But do you see that changing?
I hope. I mean, you asked me what we should do. I'm saying that's
Okay.
what we should do. Whether it will happen or not, we don't know. But I
So
think,
no, but
but
that is at
that's
the
the lesson we need.
that
That's
is
the
at the
lesson we need
panchayat
to
level.
learn.
How do you propose decentralization? See, we are not even having
See,
municipal
even for
elections for
example,
ages
schools.
now, right?
See,
Okay.
even for the example, government schools and so on. Okay.
Yeah.
I think they will be a lot better managed if the local, if the parents were involved in terms of various choices to be made. Okay, or the local community was involved, and kind of if the authorities were accountable to the citizens of that locality, that's when things will change, right? So I don't think it's a resource problem. It's who is being accountable to whom. See, our elections is what we elect our rulers. We don't elect our
Fine.
representatives.
Which
Okay,
is
we
a
elect someone who will rule over us. That's what we
yeah
do
yeah
every now and then.
which is the biggest
So
problem we have, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
why I'm very upset with the very term leadership because it has been wrongly attributed to representatives. So we've somewhere missed the point that representation and leadership are two different.
yeah. Exactly. So that's the problem. So we are still, there's a lot of echo from the British Raj still there in our whole society because we're still electing rulers rather than, selecting representatives.
And so, what's your take? How long do you think all this will change?
There needs to be some, I mean, I don't know what's the trigger. There has to be some trigger, there has to be someone with political will, but a different way of thinking about this.
Will you get into politics?
No, I will not. So I have kind of defined my, I don't have that kind of outlook as well. So my role is very clear. I mean, all of these things that I talked about really is about really uh, how, for example, this emotion of I want to do something good rather than I have to. I want to work rather than I have to work. That particular emotion happens when fundamentally we give autonomy to people. Okay.
Mm,
Very similar to the decentralizing thought that we just talked about. Now, I don't have any control over what happens in the government and so on. But what I can do is do it for my own team members. So, for my team, I give them 100% autonomy, right? And they enjoy the work. They are 100% loyal because of the environment that we have created. Now, I'm helping other entrepreneurs to do the same in terms of helping their employees feel that emotion that I want to do great work because I want to, not because I have to, right? So can we create such organizations by design? We're just creating that environment where people feel that, and I feel I'm able to do that. I'm able to create that for
but
entrepreneurs.
what you're saying is, but it's a bubble, right? I mean, those
Hopefully,
bubbles are still in this larger
yeah,
ecosystem,
sure.
right?
Hopefully, when people realize how they are feeling great in their work, they'll take
You
the same
think it'll
principles. They'll take it to the same principles to other environments.
Mm. So how long do you think? When do you think you will say
I'm
that, okay, I'm very happy that uh,
I'm no, I'm not sure. I don't even look that way. I kind of just focus on, though I know how
I
we're
mean, since you're
growing.
talking about future, what will
Yeah, yeah,
just give a random prediction time? By this time, I think India will be like. I mean, I'm not talking about the political statements, right? About we being the most powerful country,
yeah.
highest GDP. Say, the top 100 companies' GDP puts
Hmm.
India above Germany and near Japan.
Yeah. How does it help if?
Above Japan and near Germany, yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
maybe that's not the
but
right measure, also, right?
correct, yeah,
What
because it's
happens?
only 100 companies can actually outdo the whole India's GDP.
Exactly, exactly. So
So,
that's not a right measure because if you have even 20% of the population in poverty, that's not a right measure. Okay, so and I think the poverty rate is much higher, right? So
I've been thinking on that, but see, I think those measures are uh, uh, Western measures. See, if you look at it, many of say we measure poverty rate by our money a person earns for their living. But if you look at it, if you go to many of the rural India, or even I'm not even saying rural India, if you go to smaller towns, uh, uh, where there's huge traffic, right? I mean, people travel, like you go to Varanasi or you go to Ujjain, right? Millions of people every year come to that place. There is so much of traffic happening. But I actually had street food, 30 rupees, filling meal,
yeah,
30
sure.
rupees.
That's the
So
beauty of India.
technically,
Yeah.
yeah, technically 100 rupees is more than enough for you to do a one day meal.
So I think I'm not, again, I don't have the stats
So
and so on. I
somewhere
think
there is a
no,
disconnect in
no.
the
I
way they
think
measure poverty in India,
Oh
right? I
yeah. So
mean,
I think
that's
I
what I
was
was
listening
thinking.
to some YouTube channel and they were measuring. I forget the number exactly. The way you measure poverty is in terms of calories of food that you are able to have every day.
Okay.
So that was the first
But this is
definition.
not the popular definition, right? I think
This
the
is not
popular definition they do from the UN and all is
GDP, is GDP
yeah,
or
earning
gross
per, yeah,
earning per person, because
yeah,
that measures whether you are well nourished or not, and
right.
maybe the other measure is really life expectancy. Uh,
Those numbers have gotten a lot better across
Better,
India
yeah. I
today.
mean, when
Yeah,
when India got independence, it was 30.
right,
Expectancy was 30. So I think huge progress has happened since those days.
right.
But again, goes back to the point that what do we measure? I think what I say to our entrepreneurs is we need to focus on fulfillment. Okay,
So when
are
you say
we?
fulfillment,
Yeah. So fulfillment are two things. How are you feeling, as well as what kind of results are you getting? See, results are things which are tangible, like how much you earn, what's the profit, how many customers you serve, and so on. So, what's the kind? Okay, at a more simpler level, do you own a house? Okay, but the feeling is, how do you feel in that house? For example, you might always be dreaming of this large house that you'll buy, and that's your dream, and you'll kind of go with all that josh and take this loan, that loan, beg, borrow, steal to make sure that you get the house. But then you get into the house, and how are you feeling in that house with all that burden of paying the loans and creditors coming and knocking at your doors and so on, right? So, what we need to focus on is not just the things which are or results, but we need to focus on the feelings as well, right? So, GDP is a thing; it's a number. It's a thing that you can measure, but it's not a feeling. So while
Right.
we are doing better on those numbers and things and so on and so forth, we also need to be feeling good about it.
Mm.
So that's why I say we need to walk the fulfillment line. Okay, another example. For example, this is something that people talk about corporate hospitals, right?
Mm.
Okay, so you go to a corporate hospital, and this is common. A lot of people have shared this. Okay, they'll get you got an ache, and they'll say, okay, go get your MRI done, right? And later they'll say, okay, there's no problem at all. Okay, so that MRI was not really required, but still you had to do it. Why? Because there's a
Billing.
target to be met. There's a target to be met. So what happens with the reputation of the hospital? Okay, what does the patient feel? The patient feels that this hospital is cheating me. I can't trust this hospital. So let me find some other hospital. So even the bottom line of that hospital starts not looking that great, right?
Mm.
So a simple example of why we need to instead focus on the fulfillment, where we do the right things. Okay, so supposing the doctor actually says, no, I don't think you need an MRI right now, but I'll give you this tablet, it might take care, right? Now, how does the patient feel? That,
Go
yeah,
back
the
to
doctor is actually taking care of me, right?
right.
I'll come
Right.
back to this hospital because I can trust the doctor. So focusing on feelings as well as results, it's not that you're going to do charity and so on, right? As well as in the result, you're walking on the fulfillment line.
So do you see India is going in that direction?
Uh, I think people want to, but they're getting misguided, right? In a sense, I'll tell you what I mean by that. See, our philosophy, our ancient philosophy, Hinduism, and so on and so forth, right? It's an amazing philosophy that we are what shall we say? Our forefathers have given us, and and if you look at it from a very very deep angle, it's such an amazing philosophy that says that we are all you need to look inwards, inside yourself. When I say inwards, is not not be.
Mm. Mm.
It's about diving deeper into yourself, understanding yourself, and finding God, the ultimate in that process. Right? It's not about acquiring things. It's not about harming someone. It's not about making someone look bad or less or something like that. So it's such an amazing tradition that we come from, right? But what happens is people mistake instead of focusing on that goodness, we start focusing on uh, getting hurt or feeling hurt that someone is exploiting us, someone or you get my point, right? It's about
Right.
coming from the identity aspect of it rather than the essence of it.
Right. Right.
So if you actually come back, so going back to the roots, so at least okay, people are saying no, you look back, you need to take pride in your heritage, fine, but I think we need to take pride in the essence of the heritage rather than the identity of that comes from that heritage, and that essence is so wonderful, and unfortunately that might uh, get sidelined or even not understood when we are focusing on the identity aspect of it. So
Mm.
that's my
Mm.
fear.
Yeah, but if you look at it, that is what is extrapolated into everything around us, right? You see a public representative the moment they are voted in, there's a uh, there's a barricade built around them. There is a security ecosystem gets built around them that uh, whom they are representing won't be accessible because
Yeah.
there is a threat perception. They put on a red light on top of the vehicle, go around, and police are not supposed to be serving the society but serving these high lords because they become the lords. And what is funny is that I also see the similar thing even in these religious leaders, right? I mean, they are technically sannyasis, given up everything, but then they carry titles. They have become the most unreachable people. They are just like politicians now. If you see many places, they also
Yeah.
go with security.
So
So what?
maybe coming back to your earlier question, what hope do I see? I think we need to be hopeful because our tradition is so wonderful, and it's so deep.
By when do you see this will
That
happen?
I don't know. That I don't know. So we can't predict when, but I think at least we can anchor ourselves to those amazing things.
5 years, 10 years?
No, it's
I'm
going to
just
be long. I'm sure it's going to
longer
be
than that.
longer than that. It's going to be longer than that.
Okay. Uh, all right. I mean, since you mentioned
But
longer,
we can be surprised. But we can be surprised, right? See, for example, I was just listening to a podcast, and it came to me our older Parliament building, right?
hmm
Rashtrapati Bhavan, all that. New Delhi. New Delhi was got established in what year? 1919 or some. Yeah, 1919 or something like that.
yeah, it's fairly yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
1919, right? 20 years later, we got independence. So what I'm saying is 1919 was kind of height of the Raj, right? That they were so this thing that they had a new capital being built.
Correct.
Within 20 years, everything changed.
Uh, yeah, that was the Second World War. So you think we'll need another another
Uh,
situation like that?
yeah, but the point is, in a sense, I don't think the Second World War was the reason for the freedom happening
You don't?
because I don't think so. Because I think it was really that the British realized that they couldn't control us anymore.
Because they were very invested in the Second World War, right? They could not
Yeah,
stay
but
invested in India
see,
because
this is,
otherwise they would have there was a fear that they will
but the
lose
point
UK,
is, India was
right?
their golden egg, right?
Correct.
Why
And they
would
robbed
you?
it well.
Yeah, you robbed it well. So why would you let go your golden egg unless you believe that you can't control it anymore? And I think that's what happened. They
Hmm.
couldn't control it anymore because India got united around this idea of we can run our own country.
Okay. But yeah,
And I think that's
multiple
what the freedom
factors.
movement was about. And I think that's what the freedom movement was about.
So we'll possibly need another freedom movement now, but this time it's about freeing ourselves from the political Raj, from British Raj to political Raj. So
Yes,
so
exactly.
something will come about.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I guess it will. Yeah. Hopefully, the right thing will come about, not the wrong thing.
Okay, right. So if you have to make any predictions on future on any areas, right? What would you? I mean, I know you avoided completely about putting a timeline to this. So,
Yeah. So I think, as individuals, what can we focus on? So we can only focus on the work that we can do and we have influence over, right? So I think we need to just focus on that and do it with the intention of possibly at a very broad, at your own level. Am I
so
exploiting
you're
someone?
borrowing from Gita, is it?
No, I'm just saying, I mean, what else? Because we can
I
keep.
was just trying to say you're kind of
No, in fact,
distilling
I
what
didn't even
Gita.
think about that. I'm just saying, what can you control? You can control only your actions and your fear of sphere of influence. And I think the only thing we can focus on: am I doing something which is broadly good for others? Am I adding value to others, or am I extracting value from them? And I think as long as we are focused, I'm not exploiting anyone. I'm just adding value to others. I think if we kind of go from that approach,
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll come out better.
And how will you see one actively thinking about or not getting into the thought of being exploited? How do you get out of that mindset?
So I can only not exploit someone, right?
No, but
Someone might
also
exploit
not
me.
feel that you are being exploited.
Yeah, that, I mean, then you get out of that environment, go somewhere else. Okay,
Uh,
if that is a
but
constant thing, or start your own business.
uh, no, but if entrepreneurs start feeling like that, see, that's where people are
Yeah,
even moving
that's
away out of India, right? So,
correct. That's it.
so
Yeah.
you don't want to advise that.
Yeah, yeah. You need to. I mean, that's where that loyalty thing comes in. At least for me, it's very strong. That's why my temptation to stay back in India, even after most of my batchmates went off to US and all that. So that sense of loyalty is very high. So you need to work within those constraints, but hopefully every step you're taking, you kind of thinking in terms of how can I add value to others rather than exploit someone.
Right. And that will come, that will only increase, you say.
Yeah. Yes. I think it is increased. So if you look back 30 years of my entrepreneurial journey, the landscape has changed for the better, thanks to mainly 1991 liberalization. I'd say things have drastically changed, right?
Mm,
India today is so much more different and vibrant compared to what it was earlier in terms of opportunities for an entrepreneur to do business.
mm,
I think that kind of thing should happen a lot more. And I think we are so proud of the entrepreneurs who came out of that set of reforms, right? The IT industry essentially happened because of those reforms over there.
mm,
Uh, if you think about Narayan Murthy, if you think about Azim Premji, and we are so proud of those entrepreneurs. And I think similar kind of deregulation, or what shall we say, freeing up entrepreneurial spirits needs to happen in various other sectors, so that those are the kind of entrepreneurs we need to be creating, rather than entrepreneurs who might be exploiting resources or relationships.
mm. And and entrepreneurs have to, maybe our own entrepreneur, the agencies, the bodies will have to take up a lot more actively in pursuing these things with the policymakers and government agencies.
Yeah.
And also probably more entrepreneurs getting into politics.
Yeah, correct.
Oh, just one last question. Okay, do you
Mhm.
see someone like Elon Musk getting into influencing politics in India? And if you think, who would that be?
I'm I'm 100% sure he might already be doing that. So because I'm sure they want Starlink in India as well.
No, no, no. Not Elon Musk himself. I mean, if he's doing it for his business interest, but someone like him, an entrepreneur in India, if he
See,
would influence
so
politics to,
I'm kind of averse to a thought process where we are dependent on some superheroes. Uh, you
okay.
know, I think the best organizations,
But do
okay,
you
which
think?
sustain for a
I
very
mean,
long
I
time.
understand you don't want that to happen, but do you
Yeah, I
think
don't
it will
want that.
happen? But do you think
It
it will
it
happen?
it might happen because already, see, the thing is, it happens when there's a concentration of power and resources.
With few
That's
people.
when somebody can grab that and start dictating terms all through. So it's quite likely it will happen, considering the present situation in our country.
Mm. So you want to take any names who are the likely candidates for this?
I don't know. I don't know. And I don't want to go there also because beyond what we can reflect on, or, what we have control over.
So that is also you think is possible in India. We will
It is
hopefully
very,
have.
very possible. Hopefully, it won't happen, but it's very
Okay.
possible. Yeah.
You're saying
Or for
hopefully it won't happen. So you don't think it's good, is it? I mean, is that how? But at least the argument he says is that he wants to clean up the system. There's too much of bureaucracy in America. That's what is his angle, right?
so why can't that happen without a super leader?
Point is, it's not happening, right?
It can happen. So we shouldn't. I mean, we can do it in our own spaces wherever we have
Hmm.
influence, and every one of us should be doing it.
Okay. But you want those results, but you don't want the approach. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, correct, exactly. I don't think we should depend on a super leader anywhere. Even within
Right.
my organization, I kind of we don't do it in a sense. We structure it so that anyone can take decisions, anyone
Oh,
can take initiatives.
you've been long for a long time associated with business leaders. How do you see the family business in future? I mean, do you see family businesses will thrive, or how do you?
I think more and more people are going to become entrepreneurs. I think the nature of firm, okay, I have a feeling there'll be some very large firms, but a lot of the rest of it will be smaller firms. I'll tell you purely because, see, if you broadly look at why did firms or corporations really get formed, it is because that was the best way to organize resources. And
Right.
that's the best way to communicate and have contracts between
No,
people
but
and
if
so
you
on.
see the large ones are family driven, right? Because if you look at it, most of the other companies, wherever the founders could not, I mean, founder promoters do not hold majority equity, the company is run by investment firms.
Yeah. So, okay, there. Okay, I'll finish the earlier thought and then come back to this thought.
Mm.
So, broadly speaking, I feel because of the ease of communication, ease of
Hmm.
collaboration, okay, firms are going to be smaller in size.
Hmm.
Generally
Hmm.
speaking, there might be a few large ones purely in industries where they need to control resources. There might
Hmm.
be some very large firms, but broadly speaking, firms will be much smaller. Uh,
Okay.
as opposed to what it used to be earlier.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, coming back to family businesses and family run, why is it
So
that?
the smaller firms will be family run, you say, or it's again individuals coming
So
together
when,
to run.
exactly, the moment you say they're small firms, it will typically be dependent on those, entrepreneurs and so on, and
Correct.
they
No,
will
but
be
those entrepreneurs will be family, or there'll be few people
oh,
coming
okay. So
together
you're
as
kind of
such.
defining as more than one person from a family in the business that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that I'm not sure is going to happen. If you define it that way, in sense more than one, because nowadays I think especially the younger generation, they have their own view of the world and they want to express, do their own thing. So I don't know if many of them will join their family businesses.
Okay. So,
And there
so
are, I
if you
mean,
look
and
at
there
it,
are,
much of the MSMEs sustained for generations, mostly
yes,
because of family.
because of that, yeah, because
Yeah.
so that may not happen in the future as much because earlier there were not many
So then,
opportunities.
if it
uh,
doesn't happen, so then there will be a lot of churn, right? I mean, the
yeah, I
businesses will
think.
shut down.
Oh yeah, I think there's an opportunity there for people to actually help firms move forward by bringing in competencies from other people or helping them merge with other similar businesses. There
Mm,
could be a huge opportunity there.
mm, mm. So I think even the way our corporate
And
uh,
there also possibly
model,
how the government can help is making it easy for them to do so.
right, right,
Yeah,
okay.
not making it
So
expensive to merge or take over some companies and so on. It should be become
correct,
very very easy. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think so. So you see, most of these things will change then. But
Yes,
who will
certainly.
be the large ones? The large ones will be again the family businesses will be the large ones, or you see the
I've not been reading that so much. I mean, not been following it. I guess there are two forces over there, right?
no,
Somebody
because
who,
see, I think there are very few people who have interacted with so many businessmen, like you have by
hmm,
virtue of your journey in BNI.
yeah, certain. But, looking at the bigger trend in terms of large companies, I think there are two things over there, right? One is in terms of controlling resources, either or controlling money. So there might be certain organizations where which is maybe professional, meritocratic, and so on, but they have access to a huge amount of money, so therefore they are able to
Mm,
uh,
mm.
what shall we say, control a particular business and so on.
Mm.
Uh, so, so I guess these are the two things which will happen. Yeah, in terms of there might be some large funds who are who control a lot of businesses because purely because of access of money, access to capital.
See, if you wear your investor hat once again, just to say
Mm-hmm.
where to invest, what would you say? Where's the
So
future
now,
going?
for me, okay, I'm not a risk taker,
Yeah.
so to say.
Okay. I
Okay,
mean,
so
whatever is
for
your
me,
perspective. Yeah.
yeah. So, and you know, what I've realized from my entrepreneur journey, observing so many entrepreneurs, is getting to a point where a business is sustaining and making money on a consistent basis is a rare outcome. Okay, it's not a common outcome, even though we have so many companies. It's a rare outcome. So my philosophy is to invest it into the stock market.
And
Okay,
not on
and
the
get,
start.
yeah, and get really good fund managers to mutual funds, really good mutual funds to do the work because they are kind of reading those organizations, companies, and so on a regular basis, and they're investing in larger firms. So by design, the portfolio will do well. So that's my thought process. Keep it simple. Uh, yeah.
Well, you are an advocate for MSME, but your investment would be for large companies.
Yeah, because this is my personal investment. I need to safeguard it. Okay.
Yeah.
So where I can help MSME is
But
through my time.
well, fine. Personally, you don't invest, but since you interact with a lot of founders, entrepreneurs across sectors, right? So, where would you put your money on? I mean, where would you advise somebody else if they want to say that, okay, don't tell me stock market because that anyway, you say investment firms will do the investment. But if somebody wants to individually put in, what are the
So how
sectors
will
you
you
would?
recognize? Yeah, I think if you have that risk capital, if you have some money that you
Yeah.
can say, okay, willing to lose it. So but I want to support a budding entrepreneur. Where should I put it? Then I think my thought process would be to kind of bet on the entrepreneur and see how passionate he is about that cause that he is going after. And then kind of look at, okay, if that's the cause, is that market large enough or is the pain point large enough?
Mm-hmm.
So is he passionate about that purpose? It really means something to him or her. And is that gap large enough? And is the market ready for that?
Okay, not about profitability or
All that will come
speed, how
later.
fast. Okay,
Uh-huh.
but
All that will come
that
later.
would mean you say one has to be invested for a longer term. So you would say,
Yes.
look
Yeah.
at, okay, and
Correct.
what
Because
sector would, okay, so you're not saying sector,
so
you're saying the person.
person, yes, the
Okay.
person, and what's the cause? What's the problem that the person is trying to address? And is there a big pain in the market for that particular uh, cause or
Mm, mm,
purpose?
mm, mm, mm. Okay, and do you see any investors doing that since you've also been part of that community?
I think I'm not sure whether they word it the way I word it, but I'm sure
Oh,
successful companies would be successful investments more or less would fit into this kind of a thought process.
oh yeah. Uh, I thought the first would be by when do
And
we'll
broadly,
be able to exit
so
from that. That's the thought
yeah, so
process, right?
broadly, investors at the early stages are investing on the entrepreneur, right?
Mm, mm.
So I think to that extent, what I said matches with that thought
All good.
process. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So great. Anything else you want to say before we conclude this?
No, it was it was a pleasure. I think this particular session was really because you were kind of asking me questions that I normally don't talk about. So I think it was very interesting from that point of view, reflecting on the future and trends and things like that. Yeah. So yeah. So broadly speaking, I'm a champion. What shall we say? Evangelist for entrepreneurship. So your viewers, I'd like to encourage more and more to become entrepreneurs, make an impact the only way you can yourself, and create jobs, opportunities, and so on for so many people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Balaji. Uh, uh, this wonderful conversation, and also to the listeners and audience. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And links are there right below this. You can follow the kind of work. You can also consider any of the programs that you want to engage, and it's also available online remotely, so you can sign up as well. And you can connect with him, write to him, and uh, he does multiple things, but it's always confirmed to me the busiest people are the ones who are most approachable. They actually respond. so
Certainly.
so
Yeah, certainly.
Balaji
I mean,
is
happy
very
to talk
busy,
to.
but he also responds. So that's what makes him special. So please reach, follow, and engage. And once again, share this with all those who you think will appreciate this conversation. And if you have not yet subscribed to Future Fast, do it now. Once again, Balaji, thank you so much
Thank you so
for
much. Thank you,
being
Ned.
you, doing what you're doing, and wish you all the most success. And hopefully, we should uh, do some other conversation in this format.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.